Have you ever wondered if renewable energy might look different in the future? Or maybe more general, how we are going to produce energy in the future? Those two questions are very important when it's come to the future. But before we start thinking about how the future should look like, let's answer two questions about the present time. Those two questions are very important for me, and they are related to the topic of renewable energy sources. So the first question is the global use of renewable energy in 100% ecological and environmental friendly and also free from greenhouse gases? And my answer is no. According to Tennessee Valley Authority, and I agree with them in 100%, they said that today the renewable energy system and the utilization also produce greenhouse gases, so toxic chemical substances, like for example carbon dioxide. But from the other side, by assumption, the renewable energy sources, like for example solar energy, wind energy, or geothermal energy, produce only green energy without any greenhouse gases. So now we are in the situation, like from the one side, we have the system which are not environmental friendly. They produce hazardous substances for humans, animals, and plants. So in fact, for the whole environment. But on the other side, we have the sources, so sun, wind, and many, many others, which give us in 100% clean energy. So now is my question, can we change the situation? And what should we do in this situation? The answer is that we, of course, can do something. We should create the renewable energy systems, which will be made of materials which are highly biodegradable and environmental safely. But what does it mean? It means that we should use materials and chemical substances which will be safe for us, for humans, animals, and plants. So we should use, for example, chemical substances which belongs to green chemistry. And this question and the answer to this question was one of my inspiration. But there's also the second question, which is the same important like the previous one. The second question is, do we all have the same opportunities to use renewable energy? And again, my answer is no. Today, the renewable energy systems are very, very expensive. Different countries have different possibilities and different priorities. So not all countries and not everyone can use clean energy. They cannot invest big money, I mean thousands, millions, or even billions of dollars to invest in renewable energy sector. So many of people around the world want to use clean energy. They want to protect our environment, but they can't. Why? Because the price is too high. They are too expensive. So the price is the factor which significantly reduces the willingness and the ability to use clean energy at the same level around the world. So again, the question is, can we change the situation? Can we make something? And of course we can. We should of course create renewable energy systems which will be highly biodegradable and environmental safely. But also we should create a systems which will be cheap. So it means that we should use, of course, safe materials and chemical substances, but also we should use materials which are commonly available, because thanks to this, we can reduce the price and make systems which will be much more cheap. So meeting those two goals, I mean, create a renewable energy systems which will be environmental friendly, highly biodegradable, and also cheap, was crucial for me. And that's why 3 years ago, I decided to start my research project. I modify nanocrystalline solar cell. But have you ever heard that you can produce energy from sauerkraut, coffee, strawberries, or maybe carrots, and many, many others? I know it sounds crazy, but those are actually nanocrystalline solar cell. So the nanocrystalline solar cell are the solar panels which are sensitized with organic dye. So you can imagine that you can go to your kitchen and take, for example, raspberry or carrots or another fruits or vegetables. And you can say, today I want to produce clean energy. And in fact, it's all. Because this type of panel needs only organic dye. We can compare this type of solar panels to plants. Because in plants, we have chlorophyll. So the sunlight is absorbed by the chlorophyll, and we have the process which is called photosynthesis. And the same we have in solar panels. The organic dye, so for example, carrot dye, absorb the sunlight and convert them to the energy so we can charge our mobile phones, laptops, or many, many other devices. Important information is also that the nanocrystalline solar cell belongs to the third generation of solar panels. So it means that they don't have pin junction. They are also called a thin film solar panels. So why? Because they are thin as a sheet of paper. So you can imagine how thin they are. They are one more important information about those panels is that they absorb energy from two regions. So if we want to compare them to the silicon solar cell, which we can use now, silicon solar cell absorb light only from the ultraviolet regions. And nanocrystalline solar cell can absorb light from ultraviolet regions, but also the light from the visible spectrum. So it means, in fact, that we can absorb much more energy, and in fact, we can produce much more clean energy. And here you can see from the right side the plate with dye. So this is one of the stage of the construction, the nanocrystalline solar cell. On the left side, you can see the voltage measurements. So we can see that from the small panels, 5 to 5 centimeters, we can generate almost 1 volt of energy. So we can say that this modification with this dye is very effective. But when we talk about the solar panels and which are better, important are parameters. So now I'd like to compare two types, silicon solar cell and nanocrystalline solar cell. So we start with the thickness. The thickness of the silicon solar cell is about 25 millimeters. And the thickness of the nanocrystalline solar cell is only 0.35 millimeters. So you can see the difference. The huge difference we can see also when it's come to the weight. The silicon solar cell weighs about 30 kilograms, and modified nanocrystalline solar cell weighs only 2.5 grams. So the huge is very, very big. And now is the most important parameters, so the price. Today, if we want to buy silicon solar cell, we need to pay about $500 per one solar panels. And important is that we need about 10 to 15 solar panels to charge all devices in our home. So it's simply like 500 per times 10 or 15. So the whole cost is very, very high. But the modified nanocrystalline solar cell costs only $5 per one panels. So now we can imagine that we go to Starbucks and we can buy a cup of coffee from the same price. So I think that this price, $5, is much more available for all of us to use clean energy. And important is also that we don't need 15 or 10 solar panels. 5, maybe 10, maybe 8. It depends what we want to charge. But still, the price is much more lower. And that's why I believe that in near future, we will be able to use clean energy, which will be in 100% environmental friendly and free from greenhouse gases. It should be, of course, a thoughtful process, so as to make only rational decisions about our future. And at the end of my speech, I'd like to tell you that let us remember that there is only one Earth, and this is only up to us how we care about our common good and future. So before we start create the future, let's understand the present time. Thank you.